Okay, guys, welcome into another video. Today, we're going to be talking about the Drake Kraken. This is a ship that I would love to be able to earn in game one day, and it's because it more aligns with the type of gameplay that I would like to do. Those support roles as a carrier type captain, or on my Perseus in another support role as some type of support ship to either my friends or like a different org in a big PvP battle or something like that. But, we don't need to get into the state of PvP right now in this video, but it does need some work. But we're going to talk about the Kraken here. And it's an important ship, I think, for Star Citizen as a whole, especially a system like Pyro, where, everything's kind of far apart and, you don't have the real means of, sending your fighters across the system. So it would be nice to have something like this in, when the Idris comes out as well, to have those ships that can move our fleets around. And I do think that this ship will come equipped with PDSs, even though, we can't see them here in the videos. It's a capital ship, and they did say capital ships are going to get them. There's a lot of space for them. You can put some here. You can litter this top of this entire ship with PDSs. Underneath, probably not so much. Because it does have the landing gear. It does have the Caterpillar style landing gear here at the bottom. But there, you never know, that might be some space for that. Again, this is a very important ship. And I just want to take a look at the Q&A to see, like I did with the Perseus, what things have changed since then and what things will probably change in the future. Again, all speculation. Even this 3D model that we have here, as good as it is, it's still just speculation, because the ship could look very different from this. Although their designs have been pretty close, but again, it's speculation at this point. So let's take a look at the Q&A and let's see what they're talking about. Do the Kraken shields cover the other ships parked on the deck? The Kraken shields cover the whole of the ship and do not cover the ships that people may be exposed on the landing pads. Ships contained inside of the hangars are covered by the shields, with improvements to the shield technology coming with single distance fields in the future. The projected bubble people currently see will be removed for a more hole wrapping projection of shield energy. That's interesting. So this currently hasn't changed yet, and I don't know if they're still going towards this single distance field in the future. Meaning that, the shields that we currently have right now, they sit pretty far away from the ship. And if that's the case, then that does mean that your ships will be exposed if they are on the deck, if they do go to the single distance field. I haven't heard anything about that, either at IAE this year, because we had no ship presentation, or IAE last year when we did have a ship presentation. They didn't really talk too much about changes to shields and how they'll work, although it could be something that still happens in the future, but we haven't heard about it, so I doubt it. And I don't really trust CIG to implement that, because shields currently still have holes in them. Ships come out of concept and they have shield holes. I do remember when the C1 came out, it had shield holes, and you can basically two-shot it with any ship. And yeah, that was bad. One thing before we get into this, the hangars right here, I do think those are important. I'm actually wondering to see if this ship will actually grow in size. I think right now it's listed at being 272 meters. I wonder if it'll grow before its release. I think that'll be an interesting thing to see. And I also wonder if this Q&A gives us a dimension for this pad up here, because I wonder what the biggest ship that I can put up here is. I'm thinking maybe it's designed for something like a Cutlass or Freelancer size, which would be kind of necessary. But if you can squeeze it a little bit bigger on here, as long as it's on the pad, I think it should be okay, right? But then again, we'll see. Let's get back into the Q&A. Next thing. What are the Kraken's refuel, restock, and repair capabilities for dock ship? The Kraken is in many ways a mobile base. this means it is able to refuel, restock, repair ships that have landed on the patch, but it's these resources must be taken from the Kraken stores. So I wonder if that means like, will it be taken directly from the Kraken's hydrogen and fuel tanks, or will you have separate tanks that you can fill for these things? And will you need to bring, I don't know, certain commodities to be like, to rearm and repair? Like, would you have to like, they've taken local inventory away. So would you have to have like missiles and like weapon ammo in your storages, like if you have ballistics, right? To rearm your fighters? I think that would be a very cool thing if we could do that. But I think that we would probably need some type of local inventory system to properly do that. And they've taken that away. But I mean, local inventory still exists. There's still places where you can access some type of inventory system, but the way that it existed before is not how it's probably going to exist in the future. So it'll be interesting to see how they try to implement that. And you know, I'm gonna be honest, and that this may rub some people the wrong way, but CIG hasn't been the best with implementation over the past couple of years, and I do worry about that sometimes. But nevertheless, if they do stick with that, it'll be interesting to see. Can you quantum travel with ships that are parked on the deck? What about with people on the deck? Yes, you will be able to quantum with ships parked on the deck. Quantum drives in our universe create a bubble around the ship to move it and protects outward to cover those in very close proximity to the hull. Like other ships in our game, being outside your ship on the quantum travel is extremely dangerous scenario, and so it's not recommended due to the slightest misstep could result in death or permanent or abandonment in deep space. I said permanent for some reason. Yeah, even going up and down ladders on on ships and elevators and things like that when you're in quantum travel is extremely risky and dangerous. So also keep that in mind. And I don't know when this Q&A came out. I don't know what year it came out, but do keep that in mind as well. What are your plans for landing on the Kraken when it's in motion? Like the Idris and other ships where you can land whilst they are in motion, we will provide automated landing solutions for those who do not wish to attempt manual landing. This will provide a safe and secure landing at the expense of time, similar to our current automated landing at stations and rest stops. So this tells me maybe that it will probably be similar to something of what the Constellation Andromeda has. Although for the Constellation Andromeda, it is better for the ship to actually be stopped. When both ships are kind of moving, it is kind of funny, especially with, you know, throttle inputs being very, very sensitive in the patch. I think they need to make it to where your throttle is not as sensitive. Like I remember when I first started playing this game in 316, 317, and I finally got my pedals and sticks. The throttle wasn't nearly as sensitive. Like you really had to kind of like push it to get the ship going. But now, like even well, back then it was like coupled mode was like kind of like jerky, and decoupled mode would kind of like let you slowly like ramp into stuff. But now both modes are very like herky jerky, and you know that's a real problem. So if they can make it to where it's not so jerky, I think it could work. You know, you could land while moving. But in any case, and we know this from experience, don't try to land or fly out of a ship that's moving, because it usually ends very badly. Yeah. Whoop.
That time it caught me.
I slowed down too much. Can you spawn ships from the Kraken? It's a great question. When you spawn your Kraken, you will be able to spawn ships in or on it if you own them, but beyond that point, no other ships can be spawned dynamically on board. Similar how the Constellation will be able to have a ground vehicle within when spawned, but is unable to spawn another ground vehicle in the hold mid-flight. Players landing on the ship during gameplay will have their ships permanently on the pad. Currently, you can't just with the Constellation, so this is something that's not currently in the game. And we don't even have the vehicle elevators yet that they promised us at CitizenCon last year. Those are still not in the game yet. I don't think those are going to be coming into the game anytime soon, if ever. So It's going to be one of those forgotten features that like we don't have. And well, I do think we'll be able to do this, like spawn our ships in our slash on it. It's going to be very interesting because if you're doing this somewhere like a space station, which I don't recommend, by the way, if you're doing this at a space station, I think there needs, and especially like at a docking port, your ship needs to kind of be invulnerable at the docking port because it's going to take time for you to spawn each one of your ships onto the pad. And if you're doing that, you know, um, there's nothing stopping people from just rolling by and blowing up your ship. Ask me. I know this very, very well. I've been on both sides of it. Back in the Port Orlister days, I've seen people uh, just torp my A2 when I spawned on the pad, and I've blown up other people's ships in more recent patches in and around space station. So it's a thing that can exist, and it's something they kind of have to address. Luckily, the PDCs now do detect a lot of things, dummy fired missiles and things like that. So as long as the Kraken has the PDCs, if it spawns in SCM mode, which it probably should, then it should be able to do a lot of protection. But it's then again, it's just mitigate the risk and just make this ship kind of invulnerable while you're spawning things on and off of it. But then again, it's CIG, and if they make a ship invulnerable for a certain amount of time, it could bug out and make the ship permanently invulnerable, which is not good. So, what happens to the landed/hangar landed ships if the Kraken pilot logs off, is disconnected, and what will happen when the owner of the landed ships log off? Do their ships persist until the Kraken is despawned, or is the pad free for another one to land? When the Kraken will follow the same set of persistent bed log off system that we currently have in the game. If the owner of the Kraken logs off and there are no other players on board, then it will be despawned. If there are players still on board, then the Kraken, if there are players still on board, then the Kraken and ship stay on board will persist. If a player lands their ship on the Kraken then proceeds to log off, their ship will persist with the Kraken until the point the Kraken is either despawned, or destroyed, at which point, if a player then rejoins, they will either have to respawn at the point the Kraken was, or will have to reclaim it in the event that it was destroyed. So here's the thing about persistence, right, in these persistent ships. And I don't mind the ships being persistent, but I do think there is a big issue with ships just kind of being left around. And we're already kind of seeing a lot of abandoned Polarises like in and around the verse already, which is getting kind of very annoying. So I do wish that ships had a despawn time. Like even if the player logs off, and let's just say the player logs off for like more than like 6 hours, right? It could be assumed that if they log off for more than 6 hours, they're probably not going to come back for the day. So their ship and things like that will go ahead and despawn. That way, it kind of cleans up the server, because we don't need long-term persistence in the game right now. We get it. It works. I wish they would dial it back so there's not as many entities for the servers to load, and the game could run a little bit smoother until we get into like the idea of us actually getting to 1.0, and then everything can persist. But right now, I think it's like not really necessary for everything to just persist, given the state of given the state that the servers are currently in. How does the Kraken's armor compare to other ships in its size class, like the Idris? It's a good question. In true Drake fashion, the approach to construction prizes pragmatism and cost effectiveness. Consequently, the Kraken's substantially less sturdy than the Idris and other dedicated military ships that are expected to face direct heavy or capital ship scale firepower. So that means your Kraken shouldn't be doing shit like this. If your Kraken is fighting in like this little image right here of the Kraken fighting the Idris, this should not be happening. If this is happening, something's gone terribly wrong and you're losing, and you should probably run away. It's not meant to do this. It looks like at most it has, that could be a size 4 repeater right there. So you're not going to have the weaponry to go after something like this, because this thing has, size 5 turrets, has big guns on the front and things like that. It could, do some things in an emergency, but your true firepower is going to be with your fighter screen that's going to be on board your ship, and your fighter screen, fighter wing, that's going to be on board your ship. So if you're doing this right here, something's going terribly wrong. What is meant by towards the rear of the ship public accommodations can be found for visitors and associates? Does the Kraken offer any special function or gameplay for public services like shops, bars, medical, or trading for those who are waiting for repair or just visiting? There are onboard accommodation rooms to cover 1 or 2 players per landing pad. There are basic cabs like you would find in Grim Hex and provide somewhere to rest, change, and sleep. There are no dedicated facilities like bars or trading areas on board at this time. So the question asks about medical stuff too. And like, I don't know if there's going to be a medical place on board this ship, but I would assume that they would probably do that if they haven't talked about it already in this Q&A or other places. I don't know everything, I'm just kind of coming at this, approaching this and looking at these ships, because a lot of these ships, especially the older ones, were announced before I started playing. And I do think it's kind of fun to go in and, talk about these older ships, because I do think they need to start coming into the game, especially the capital ships like this, the Odyssey. I don't think the Odyssey's not really a capital ship, but the Odyssey and the Idris, these ships need to start coming to the game so we can start having that fleet carrier style gameplay, because this is my kind of gameplay right here. Just having all of my ships on board this and flying it around from system to system, having my own mobile base, for me is infinitely better than having a space station. With the Kraken being a capital sized ship, will it have escape pods now, unlike other Drake ships? Drake sees no need to provide expensive escape pods when the Kraken can hold plenty of ships to facilitate escape in the unlikely event of an emergency. So, no escape pods. How many ships can the Kraken hold and still quantum drive with? I think it meant quantum travel with, but yeah. The current design for quantum travel requires all the doors to be shut before the quantum travel can be initiated, with no requirements beyond that, such as checking maximum ship amounts. The Kraken can therefore quantum travel with a full complement of ships, although, as mentioned earlier, being on deck is a risky proposition. But I think, if you're getting ready to go into a battle, right, I do think having your fighters already lined up on the deck and ready to go, having your fighters, your pilots in their ships ready to go, that way when you come out of quantum travel to your location, they're just, taking off and going to do their thing. And like I said, it would be nice, like, if the ship itself could create its own quantum beacon. That way players can find their way back, if you don't want to put your Kraken in direct harm's way. That would be, again, if anybody from CIG watches this, throw that in there for your boy. Can the Kraken equip military grade items, or only civilian/industrial? The Kraken can only equip civilian and industrial items and comes with a civilian grade C items by default. Okay, that's not that big a deal. If it can hold industrial stuff, I think that's still pretty good. The industrial shields have been good in the past, so it'll be interesting to see how all that works. Currently, right now, with most capital ships, you can't change those things out. But I think as more of the capital ships come online, we may see like some different types of capital, shielding and stuff like that. I just hope all that stuff's not bespoke. Even if you have to craft it, I still think like we should be able to change out some of the stuff. The Kraken brochure talks about configuring the rear hangars to fit our needs. Does that mean that the Kraken might have some type of modular capabilities to outfit those hangars to suit other functions like extended medical and S&R or salvage processing? Drake always looks to maximize the use of their spaceships, while these rear cargo holds are ostensibly, is that the right way to say that word for cargo? There is a significant amount of real estate that could be repurposed in the future for alternative uses. Meaning no. And the reason you know that is because they have an entirely other Kraken, the privateer, which is an entirely different ship, really, from the regular Kraken. So, no, I don't think there's going to be any real modularity between these ships. I know the Caterpillar and the Ironclad have some modularity, but you still got to buy both ships. It's not like, you can buy the command module for one ship and then buy the rest of the ship separately. You literally have to buy both ships, which come with their own command modules. And I don't see them, especially with capital ships, doing a whole lot of modularity because that doesn't make them money. So that's just my thought on that. I mean, just look at the Argo MPUV and like all those things. Those could have easily been modular ships, but what they've decided to do is to make you buy all three of them. So, I mean, that tells me right there that they're not doing much of anything when it comes to modularity in the future, despite what people may think. How will this ship defend itself against armed boarding parties or other guests who refuse to leave? The internal layout of the ship provides quite a few choke points, from the landing pads allowing somewhat of an organized defense against boarding. There are no inbuilt mechanics within the ship to deal with guests who refuse to leave. That will be down to the owner's persuasion techniques. Basically, to shoot anybody that comes on board. Again, the ship should have PDTs or PDCs here in the future. So if anyone is hostile shooting at your ship, the PDCs are pretty powerful. The pretty PDCs right now, they're pretty powerful and they can kill fighters actually quite easy. They're actually kind of more effective than they're kind of more effective than your actual turrets, because they're essentially aimbot, and they have the best predicting like where you're at. They're very, very good, and they're very, very powerful right now. So I can honestly see that not being a real issue as long as they're being hostile to your ship. Then you should be able to deal with them pretty easy. Can we transfer cargo between docked and landed ships? If not, can cargo be transferred between docked and landed ships and the Kraken? Every external landing pad has access to the internal tram route via a loading hatch, which is located in the airlock antechamber. The internal tram is primarily designed to carry cargo between the pads and the main cargo hold to facilitate cargo moving between ships and the Kraken itself. Okay, so I don't know. I need to come here. I'm trying to see if there is any. That's the Dragonfly Bay. I'm trying to see if there's anything like that. So there are fuel tanks. Okay, so here are the fuel tanks, and I think these could be used for your refueling, right? It's the hallway. Here's the cargo bay. So is it one of these things? And this is a similar looking thing to what they had on the Ironclad. It's a kind of a similar kind of like rail system. So I don't know if they're talking about this right here itself. One of these things. Internal tram route. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I don't know if... I'm not sure this is going to make it into the game. Or not this. Not this. It was this one, right? It was this one. Yeah, I'm not sure if this is going to make it into the game or not. That's a little bit wishful thinking, especially, with how the game currently operates. Maybe we could see something like that, but I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna look through some more of these pictures to see if we can see anything. There's the engine room, the Drake shipyard, fighting in Idris, which it shouldn't be doing. Here's the hangar. Again, here's another one of those things that are going across, but I think when these ships are being repaired, it's mostly just going to be via magic. There's not going to be a lot of this other stuff going on. And then you have your exploration. All right. Is that the last one? Nope, we got this one. Yeah, I didn't see anything that would in their concept images that would lead me to believe they're actually working on something like that. But who knows? They could change that here in the future. The Drake Kraken shows some concept of it landed in the desert as well as parked at Lorville. How can we expect it to fare an atmospheric flight? And does it have VTOL? As with all ships of its size, the atmospheric flight performance can be characterized as poor at best, but the Kraken does have multiple VTOL thrusters to allow it to take off and land in atmosphere. There are two located under the front ears that pivot and face 90 degrees down. Well, that should say face down 90 degrees. Okay, but either way. And more are built into the underside of the rear hull in a permanent down facing layout. So they're probably talking about this picture right here. If it landed in the desert, this is probably like something like a Daymar type location. Um, but yeah, I do think, for one, capital ships fly too good, and I do think there should be real skill involved in flying any ship. Which is why I'm a big fan of the idea of having licensing in the game for the ships that you want to fly. And while people may think that that's pushing too many people in the box, well, I would say that, I don't think it necessarily would put anyone in a box because you can get a license for any ship. It's just you are then understanding like how that ship actually operates, and you are proficient in the flight and the engine management and the engineering of whatever ship that you're going to be flying. And I think that it would instantly add a lot of depth to the game. And for anyone who you would see like flying a capital ship, that person is qualified to fly that ship. I just think the flight has gotten even easier and there's less skill expression in the fight itself, and I think that's a bad thing, because I've flown the Polaris a lot, and it flies too good in atmosphere. You basically, all you need to do is turn on coupled and turn on proximity assist, and the ship just flies fine. And I think that no capital ship of this size, especially something without lift services, should fly that well in atmosphere. I mean, it could fly good in a straight line. I mean, there should be really nothing wrong with that. But as far as it flying like perfectly in atmosphere, and you don't have to worry about it bucking around like the F7 does, the F7 should fly like it should be how most multi-crew ships fly in atmosphere. But for whatever reason, what CIG has done is they make ships that are non-combat related fly really well, and the ships that are combat related fly very poorly. And that is based solely on weapon balancing. So ships with a lot of weapons typically don't fly that well in atmosphere. There are a few exceptions, like the F8 and the Cutlass. Those do typically fly pretty okay in atmosphere, but they're slow and they have very slow turn rates. Not the Buccaneer, but the Cutlass has a little bit better of a turn rate than the F8 does. But the point I'm making here is there should be a lot of skill expression when it comes to flight in the game, and that just doesn't exist in the game that we currently have right now. And that's, for me, a bad thing, because I do think people should know what they're flying and how to fly and things like that, and the game should explain that to people. And what we have currently is something that they said, okay, well, flight's too hard, so we're gonna put training wheels on, and we're gonna force everyone to fly with training wheels, even though you know how to fly. Even if you know how to fly, we're gonna force training wheels on you, and I think that's bad for the overall game. Now, there is something that I did want to bring up, because we did see this at CitizenCon during this year, and that was the Ironclad. Maybe not the Assault. It could be just a regular Ironclad. But if you know things go correctly, right? The ironclad is supposed to have, or the assault variant is supposed to have a some type of repair bay inside of it. And I do think if that ship does come out next year, then it's going to be a lot easier for them to kind of do all the repair and stuff necessary for the Kraken. And I could honestly see them using a lot of assets from the ironclad to make the Kraken, and so the Kraken could be on the way. Maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, you could probably start seeing a lot of Krakens out there and things like that. So that's gonna be my video for today. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Are you excited for the Kraken? I like the Kraken. I like the idea of it, and if it retains its mobile base and things like that, I think that'd be fun. And one thing I do hope that we could do with a ship like the Kraken is to not have base building, but if we could have a spot in our ship to where we could build components, like say for instance someone wants to come to your ship and they want to buy a quantum drive from you, or shield generators, or weapons. You can outfit ships directly from your Kraken, as long as you have those resources that have been brought to the ship that are necessary to do that. I think that'd be great. If you can do that, if we can do that for fighters. And again, let me know what you guys think about all this down in the comments below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.